Hello everyone, and welcome to our doctoral seminar for this spring featuring Danielle Hilaski. Danielle is a doctoral student at Georgia State University in the Department of Middle and Secondary Education, and currently she's writing her perspectives, and we are so pleased to have her with us to learn from her insight and gain some really helpful, useful tips. We appreciate that she will be sharing those insights with us on the pre-qualifying process. I am your guest moderator, Christy Pace. I'm filling in for Dr. Albers tonight, who is professor at Language and Literacy, and she is the founder of Conversations in Doctoral Preparation and Global Conversations in Literacy Research. I'd like to introduce Jen Keong Francis Jung, a second-year doctoral student in Language and Literacy at Georgia State. She co-coordinates these seminars with Tuba Angai Crowder, who is also a doctoral student, who is in her third year. She is, too, a Language and Literacy major at Georgia State. Conversations in Doctoral Preparation are online, interactive, and participatory web seminars for the purpose of preparing doctoral students to work in the academy. We invite you to log on to our website where you can view upcoming web seminars as well as learn more about conversations in doctoral preparation. Doctoral students of all stages in the program are invited to present. We are now accepting proposals. If you're interested in presenting, please contact Tuba Angai Crowder at tongai1@student.gsu.edu or Jen at jinc1210@gmail.com. We're organizing different presentations for the 2014-2015 series, and these can be research-based. You can present your own research. You may also choose to present on a topic of a process that you're going through in the doctoral program. And feel free to, you can co-present, so there could be more than one of you presenting if you're a little bit shy to present for the first time. Blackboard Collaborate tools. We would like you to please feel free to chat and ask questions of Danielle in the chat area, and then we will try to monitor that as best we can. And just so we know, get an idea of from where you're listening, if you'll use the star button to the left of the PowerPoint to indicate on the map where you're watching this presentation from tonight. All you have to do is take your pointer or your mouse and put it on the star tool and then click on the map. Oh, we got Danielle in Texas. I see that. And then Georgia. And if you're having trouble with that tool, you can always type in from where you're listening. I'm listening from Evans, Georgia. Welcome everybody again, and thank you for joining us tonight. In tonight's presentation, Working Smarter, Not Harder, Preparing Your Pre-Qualifying Packet, Danielle Hilaski will be discussing practical suggestions to successfully navigate the PhD program. The pre-qualifying packet is a required part of the Language and Literacy Ph.D. program at Georgia State University. Danielle will detail the pre-qualifying process and outline the necessary components of completing it. In addition to a description of each component, she will provide us with examples of other PhD students' work and how they structured their packets. She will offer how you can use your work in this process beyond the scope of just simply completing the packet. Danielle is a fourth-year PhD student in the Middle and Secondary Education Department with a concentration in Language and Literacy at Georgia State University. Currently, she's working on her prospectus, where she plans to study the ways reading recovery teachers' beliefs and practices are impacted by their involvement in a professional development that focuses on the sociocultural lives of their reading recovery students. At this time, it is with great pleasure that I introduce Danielle and her presentation, Working Smarter, Not Harder, Preparing Your Pre-Qualifying Packet. So Danielle, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Christy. I appreciate you having me here this evening. My name is Danielle Hilaski, and I'll be presenting tonight. It's called Working Smarter, Not Harder, Preparing Your Pre-Qualifying Packet. I appreciate everyone joining me tonight. I know here in Houston it's 7 o'clock, but I know it's 8 o'clock in Georgia, so I appreciate you taking time out of your very busy schedule to join me tonight. I hope that you find my presentation to be informative and helpful in your PhD program. So just to give you a sense, I know Christy told you a little bit about myself. For me, it's always helpful to hear a little bit about the speaker before getting started on hearing what they have to say. Again, I'm a fourth-year PhD student at Georgia State, although I'm currently living in Houston. I'm in the prospective stage of my program, crossing my fingers to start my study in the fall. I'm looking at the social cultural practices that could possibly be integrated into reading recovery. I have other research interests, including early childhood literacy, teacher development, and culturally responsive teaching. I've had the honor and privileges to present both locally and nationally, and have had the opportunity to publish a journal article and book chapter. And I've included a picture of my family to show you, and my two beautiful twin girls, to show you that I have been able to maintain a balance between school life and family life. So sometimes I think we all need a reminder that it is possible to persevere through a PhD program and our lives. So just to reiterate what Christy has already said, I'm really intending this presentation to be interactive, and so feel free to use all the features that Illuminate has to offer. We do have the chat area, so please make use of it. I want to personalize this presentation so it meets all your needs about the pre-qualifying phase of your program. So our agenda for the evening is I'm going to outline the purpose of the pre-qualifying phase. As Danielle mentioned in our earlier casual conversation, it's a relatively new phase in the program. So I just want to outline the purpose. I'm going to give an overview of the components of the pre-qualifying packet, which include the annotated discussion of and reflection on the program, a revised course paper, and an action plan. I have color-coded throughout my presentation, so you can kind of see where I have taken verbatim from the Language and Literacy Guidebook and where my personal insights and advice have come in. So if it's color-coded in blue, it's come verbatim from the guidebook. If it's color-coded green, those are my suggestions of how you can work smarter and not harder in creating your packet. And at the end, I'll provide an opportunity for any discussion and question, but feel free to type any questions in the chat area, and I can be interrupted at any time so I can further explain or answer any questions that you may have. So to give you an overview of the pre-qualifying phase, it is something that needs to be completed after approximately 1 year in the program. It's 18 to 21 hours. It could be sooner for those of you that are going full-time in the program, and it's a packet that needs to be submitted to your advisor. And so some advice for myself, I learned a little bit the hard way, and I completed the packet well beyond 21 hours to my disadvantage. I made much more work for myself because the components that you need to include are somewhat ongoing. So to keep you on track and to minimize the amount of work needed to complete this to a stellar level, I advise making contact with your advisor about your progress in the program. Your advisor is there to support you and keep you on track, so you should utilize them. So if you can make contact with your advisor, keep them up to date about where you are in your program, and establish a timeline about when you would like to complete and turn in the pre-qualifying packet. And that helps to hold yourself accountable, which I highly advise, because our lives get busy and classes are busy, and making this a priority helps you to accomplish this task in a timely manner. I also highly recommend that you start the packet after your first class. And although that task might be daunting for someone who's just started the program, it can eliminate a very overwhelming task consuming you. So if you can do that from the beginning, that is extremely helpful. And I'll make recommendations throughout the duration of my presentation about how you can do so. So the purpose, as stated by the guidebook, says this pre-qualifying exam is designed to assist and support the student at an early stage in their program and offer guidance towards fulfilling their goal of the PhD. With that being said, this is an important part of your program. It is an opportunity to showcase your thoughts as both a student and a scholar. And with that being said, it requires time and effort. And you need to give yourself ample time and dedicate the time needed to showcase all you have to offer. But at the same time, you want to see it as not just a task to complete, but instead you want to see it as a stepping stone to your future work. And I'm going to talk to you throughout about how you can think about utilizing your work in the pre-qualifying packet towards your future research and PhD endeavors. At the bottom of the screen, I have the link to the PhD handbook for the Language and Literacy Department, and this is something that would be extremely helpful as you're preparing your packet and also throughout the duration of your PhD exam or PhD program. So the first component that I'm going to be discussing, not that you have to work in any particular order, but I found this one to be the place I started first as I prepared my packet. And the first component is the annotated discussion of and reflection on the program. And in the guidebook, it states, the student will study her or his program of study and reflect on her or his learning in the program up to this point. The student will take this document and briefly describe each course that was taken, highlight key learning from each course, identify key readings done in the course, and generate questions that arose by studying this topic and or how this course helped her or him understand or work towards their scholarly interests and goals. The student will annotate and briefly reflect on each of the key readings done in the course in a reference list APA style. So this is it sounds like a daunting task, but it's not as daunting as it sounds. So let me dig into it a little deeper. My personal advice is that you should be starting to work on this document after your very first course. As I stated before, if you let this go until right before you turn in your packet, it could get overwhelming as you're discussing 6 to 7, or in my case, 10 or 11 or 12 courses in some detail. It can be very overwhelming. So if you start the process after the first class, you can take that week or 2 or 3 after you finish your course and really spend some time reflecting on the course and thinking about what you've learned and how it's impacted you as both a student and a future scholar. And you, as you're continuing to work on it throughout the program, it will be complete except for some minor revisions and some editing before you turn in your packet. So I highly suggest doing that to eliminate this overwhelming task. I also recommend utilizing course documents and writing from the course as you're reflecting on your coursework. I used syllabi from class. I also used class notes. Any writing that I did or class projects I used to reflect on, just to give me a sense of where I had come and what I had learned and what I was still wondering about. So definitely refer back to them, and I found the syllabi to be extremely helpful. Another suggestion I had was to make choices about the readings that you included. So you have to provide an annotated bibliography of the key readings from each course. And of course you need to pull the main text, but when you're pulling other texts into this, I started to think about what text will benefit me to do more of an extensive annotation on. I was thinking about my research interests. I was thinking about my comprehensive exams. Where would it benefit me to do some additional reading and writing that I could draw upon in the future? So really thinking about your long-term goals as you're creating your annotated bibliography. Another suggestion I had was to seek advice from your peers about what they've done, not only in this seminar, because I have done the same, but talking to people. How are they setting it up? What did they include? What was their format? Asking those specific questions just to get an idea. I know as I was looking through examples of my fellow PhD students' work, I was amazed by how different the formats were. So really getting a sense of what other people are doing will help you in the long run. And if they have the same advisor, you can learn about that advisor's expectation. I also suggest reaching out to your advisor. Do they have any specific requirements? Are they looking for just a summarization of your key readings, or are they looking for you to be more critical? Touching base with your advisor throughout the process will benefit you in the long run. I also suggest, as stated in the guidebook, making sure that you're using correct APA references. I cannot emphasize that enough. If you use correct APA references in your work now, you can draw upon those in the future. And Zotero and EndNote are two helpful resources that you can access at the Georgia State Library that can help you in the long run. I included an image, which has covered up the text a little bit, but this is one of my explanations of the courses I took my very first semester at Georgia State. The reason I included it is when I reflected on my work and then looked across other students' examples, I noticed that my explanation was quite lengthy. So it's really nice to see what the expectation has become. Although I found this process to be very helpful for me to reflect on my work and reflect on my learning, I may have changed my format a bit if I had talked to my colleagues earlier. So I'm going to give you some examples. I'm including examples from students who are in prospectus and dissertation phase of their program. And I hope that you find their examples to be helpful and help you to start thinking about how you would like to format your pre-qualifying packet. So on the left, Natasha Thornton, who is in dissertation phase of her program, she set her section up by course, and under each course she included key readings, which she provided a brief annotation. And then for the second part, she included a bulleted list, and the bulleted list included the description and key learnings from the class, and then she also included a separate section which she bulleted on key questions and helpfulness to scholarly interests. So that's one way that it was structured. David Brown, who's also in prospectus phase of his PhD program, he also used a similar format. He structured it by course, but then also by semester. He provided a brief narration of each course and then listed major readings and did a brief annotation. So you can see there's some similarities. I also structured mine in a similar way. I did the course and then major readings below. But it just shows you that you have some flexibility. This is Tara Campbell, who is also in her Perspectives phase for program. She structured it a completely different way, and it shows that your advisor can give you flexibility as far as the format. So you need to see what's most comfortable for you and be most beneficial for you in the long run. In her section, she did it by semester, and then she did a narration where she talked about her learnings and each course and the key learnings and key readings in narration. So she addressed them throughout. She didn't section it out as David and Natasha and I had done. So she looked at each semester more holistically than I had done. So that gives you another perspective on how you could approach it. And then her second part of the annotated discussion part was she did an annotated bibliography where she arranged all of her references in alphabetical order from all the courses she had taken thus far, which was completely different than all the other students had completed. And I like the way that she did that because then it kind of gives a running list of all the readings, all the key readings that she's done for future reference. But you can see all the examples that I've provided thus far, the annotations are rather concise. When I did my annotation, I actually did a more extensive annotation for the readings, thinking about which readings will benefit me for my long-term goals. So I wanted to do a more extensive reflection of my reading and more extensive writing where I thought that I had more to learn or I could draw upon it for my future work. So really thinking about not just thinking about what do I have to do to complete this packet, but thinking about it, how will this help me for comprehensive exams? How will this help me to write my perspectives? So thinking about your length in your annotations and the work that you put into this section, think about where you will utilize your work for the future.
So, Danielle.
Yes, ma'am.
Real quick, can you talk a little more about, you've mentioned a couple of times of how to try to tie in these course readings with your topic for your research and your dissertation.
Mm-hmm.
When should somebody start determining what their topic is and preparing those readings in that kind of a way? Is that a conversation that you would recommend having with your advisor? And then also Rebecca had mentioned, one of our participants, Rebecca mentioned how concise they were. Mm-hmm. How do you determine what to put in and what not to put in? Or how?
That's a great question. I'll talk about the conciseness first. I was actually surprised about the conciseness also, because when I went back to look at my pre-qualifying packet, my annotations were not concise. So I think it would be dependent on first of all your advisor's expectations, but it would also depend on what you were hoping to get out of each of your citations. So perhaps a citation that you knew that would benefit you for your further work, you might decide to do a more lengthy examination, whereas one that you knew was important but may or may not benefit you in the future, you might be more concise. I would suggest that it's probably a personal preference and a personal need. As far as your research interests, mine actually changed throughout the program as I enrolled in different courses. So my original interest was mentoring, so I did a lot of preliminary work related to mentoring in my courses, and then changed my focus as I enrolled in courses. So I would just, as you're exploring what your interests are in your coursework, and that's where you really need to be doing it. If you've taken a research course and you have an opportunity to do a research paper for a future a possible study, really exploring that to see if that's where your interests lie. You need to utilize your early coursework. They're not just check marks. They're really an opportunity to explore your thinking and to figure out where your interests lie and where you can make a difference in the field. Is that helpful?
Thanks, Danielle. That was great. That was really helpful. Appreciate you clarifying that.
Okay. And another quick suggestion about what to include in the annotation. I have included some email addresses at the end. If you wanted to see a more extensive look at what other people have included in their citations, you can email them personally and ask them to see what they included, and that might give you a better sense of, okay, this is how they gave an annotation. This is what they included. This is what they didn't include. Oh, this person included quite a lengthy annotation, while this person didn't, just to give you a perspective. So I'll include those at the end so you can always make contact. So this table is by Natasha, and I really liked the way she organized it. I thought it was a great tool for both summarization, but also I thought it would be a really nice pre-writing tool. Kind of get your thoughts going even before you start writing, to keep record of all the key points you needed to hit upon based on the guidebook's requirements. So you can always reach out to Natasha if you felt like this might be a helpful tool for you in the future. So the second component of the pre-qualifying packet is the revised course paper. And in the guidebook, it says you take a paper that was written in one of your courses and rewrite it, integrating the instructor's feedback, submit the original paper along with the revised version. My suggestions for working smarter, not harder, is to be strategic. I can't highlight that enough. That's kind of my theme this evening. You want to make sure that you, for lack of a better words, are getting a bang for your buck, that you can learn along the way. So when I was trying to select a course paper to revise, I was thinking about, oh, where did I get the most feedback from a professor, or which paper would be the easiest to revise, or which paper have I done recently that is fresh on my mind. And when I went to go do it, I started to think differently. And I thought about, okay, where are my long-term goals? What are my research interests? How could this revision help me with my comprehensive exams? And that helped me to make a decision about the paper that I wanted to use. So I used a course paper, and I did more writing, and substantially more writing and more reading, and I used the paper that will hopefully, the revisions will make it into my dissertation. So it's making this work for you, not just seeing it as a task. So really examining yourself as a scholar and thinking about how this paper can further you in the program and with your work. And just remember that the original needs to be submitted to your advisor. I made the mistake of not saving as originally, and it caused some hysteria along the way. So just remember the Save As tool is your best friend as you go to revise your paper. I did not include any examples. I figured this was a very personalized part of the packet. Feel free to touch base with me if you needed any additional feedback, or any of your colleagues. They're super resources. It looks like Kathleen has a question.
Yeah, Kathleen, do you want to go ahead and just use your talk button? Kathleen, did you have a question for Danielle? Oh, it's not working. Could you maybe type your question into the chat? There you go, yeah.
I turned in 2 documents. My professor had actually done some handwritten notes, so I made a copy of the original document with handwritten notes and turned that in with my revisions. I know that some professors do it electronically, so you could also save the electronic copy of the original with those commentary and then submit it that way. All right, I'm glad that was helpful. The next component of the pre-qualifying packet is the action plan. The guidebook states, based on the coursework taken so far in the program and the experiences in which you have participated, internships, research projects, presentations, etc., you develop a plan of action for the major area of your program. In this plan of action, you reflect on your strengths and weaknesses as a student and emerging researcher. In regards to your weaknesses, you identify a set of actions you can take to address these areas of weaknesses for the remainder of your program. It also seems a bit daunting when you read that description, but it's not. So some ways to work smarter, not harder, is something that I've done along the way. As you can tell, that I like to keep on top of my workload. So I kept a running list from the very beginning of things that I was doing well at and areas that I needed to improve. And that helped me along the way, because when I went to go write the document, I wasn't just sitting and thinking. I already had some commentary to get myself started. I find that the blank page is sometimes intimidating if you have some preliminary thoughts. That really helps you with the process getting started. Another thing I included in my weaknesses is I started to include a list of future readings. So if I was in a course and we had done some readings in, for example, the theoretical models of language class, and I had started to read, I had read Vygotsky, but some other names had come up, I started to jot down those names, knowing that my comps were coming up and that I would need to do more reading for preparation for that anyway, and that could be included in your weaknesses. You could talk about how you need to be more well-read, and then you already have the list of citations and your plans for your reading list already assembled. And that will not only help you for your pre-qualifying packet, but will also help you for your comps. And so thinking ahead as you go along throughout the process will be very helpful as you're assembling this packet. Some other great advice I got from my colleagues as I was looking through their packets is keeping your program of study and residency plan updated. This not only helps you for the packet, give your advisor a sense of where you are, where you've come, what you've been working on, both academically and as far as your commitment to the department. It also keeps your eyes on things that you need to be doing and thinking about the direction you're heading in the program. So that's extremely helpful. The next thing is, as I looked across documents, people found a form that was comfortable for them. And the department has given us the flexibility to use that. So don't think that just because it says particular things in the guidebook that you have to structure in a particular way. I'll show you some examples in the next couple of slides, and you can see how people have adapted it to make it work for them.
Yeah, Danielle, RL has a question.
Okay.
RL asks, other than being more well-read, what other types of weaknesses do people typically name? Everything I think of seems to fall under the category of being more well-read.
I think we can always be more well-read. Well, let me take you some examples, and you might be able to get some ideas. And if you haven't haven't gotten the answer to your question, then I'll be happy to share. Okay, so let me show you some examples. Here are the examples I'll be using. Myself and Tara are in the perspectives phase of our program, and Kelly and Natasha are in dissertation, just to kind of give you an idea where everyone is. So here's my action plan. I included 2 subsections, my strengths and weaknesses. One of my main weaknesses that I included was my knowledge of theories and theorists. I felt like I always got them mixed up, and I couldn't remember what everyone did, and we'd be talking in class, and I would need to go back and revisit. So that was one of my weaknesses. I also talked about my involvement in the department. I was working full-time and beginning to have a family, and how would I become more involved in the program? For me, that was something that was one of my weaknesses. And I have to think about some of the other weaknesses I included, but those are some examples. It's not just being well-read. That's something that we can all improve on. But Kathleen, yes, organization. When I was looking through some of the other examples of students, they also include organization as being the weakness. However, I found that to be my strength. So we all have our strengths and weaknesses for sure. Kelly also structured hers in a similar manner. She did some narration of both strengths and weaknesses, and just like I had done, she had sectioned it out. So she had done organization, and then she gave some narration describing how that was a strength for her. But you can see as one of her weaknesses, reading and writing. I know when you're working full-time or you have other commitments, finding time to do the writing besides just for coursework can be daunting. So that's something we're all working on. One thing that I liked about Kelly's section is that she included her residency plan and her program of study in the document. I thought that would be very helpful for advisors as they're taking a look at where you are and where you've come from. And that was something I did not consider doing, but I thought that that would be a nice addition for our advisors who are managing many students, and to have that quick access I thought would be a great idea. Something else that Kelly included, she included a table and outlined all the coursework that she took and when she took it. And I think visually that's very powerful for your both your advisor and yourself. So you can see kind of the evolution of your studies, and I think that also helps you to understand how your thinking and learning has evolved. So that's a table that I thought was extremely helpful that Kelly shared with us. Tara did something completely different, and I thought it was a great idea. She entitled the section Reflections and Future Plans. And in her reflection section, she thought more holistically. Instead of, as I had kind of subdivided it out, I did my strengths and I did subsections. I listed out all my strengths. And then in the weakness, I listed out my weaknesses and then addressed how my plan of action would address those weaknesses. She instead looked at it holistically, and she reflected on how the program and her coursework had impacted her theoretical perspective, had impacted her research interests, had impacted her thinking. So she took a more holistic look at the whole program. And then she specifically discussed her program of study, what courses she had taken, where she was planning to go. She talked about how she had some things that she wanted to do. She wanted to do some assistantships, so she was reserving space in her coursework so she had time to do those types of things. And then she talked about her residency plan, how she was going to fulfill that, how she was going to make time for that. So her format was completely different from the rest of ours, and I think that's really powerful for you to see, so you can see there's not one format that works for this, but there's lots of different formats that you can make comfortable for you that's going to benefit you in the long run. I think I did 3 weaknesses and 3 strengths. I'd have to look back across examples. I think that's probably a common number, but I would imagine there's no right or wrong number of strengths and weaknesses. So Natasha also took a different approach to this section. She entitled the section Reflections and then Strengths, Weakness, and Plan of Action. And in her reflection section, it was comprised of 2 sections. She reflected on her coursework more generally, and then she reflected on research and teaching. For her to do that research and teaching section, she had to have been enrolled in her research internship, teaching internship, or assistantships, where I could not have done that. I had not completed those by the time I had done my packet. So this is just an example that she was making it work for her and how she had structured her program. And then in the second section, she had done her strengths, her weaknesses, and plan of action, and she integrated the whole section together in narrative form. So she didn't section out that part at all. I hope these examples show you that there's really no way that you have to do this. You have to make it work for you. You need to check with your advisor to make sure that the way you're formatting it is okay with him or her. But I can't imagine that as long as it's working for you in the long run, that they would have any qualms about you taking some liberties and giving you the flexibility that you needed. Okay, so that concludes the informative part of my presentation. I hope that you found the examples to be helpful. I wish I had taken a seminar like this. When I was preparing my packet, I would have done things very differently. I probably, it would have impacted my writing and the extent that I write, but I think I learned a lot about myself as a student and my research interests because of this packet. And I think that if you think about it as a long-term, it can benefit you in the long term, not just something to complete, that it can be a very beneficial process. So if you have any suggestions or insights, I know that we are all learning together. I know many of us have completed the packet thus far. If you have other suggestions, please feel free to share in the chat box or raising your hand. I know that Christy's keeping a watchful eye of that. Feel free to share. This is a time that we can really learn from each other. So if you have any questions or feedback, feel free to share.
Thanks, Danielle. We appreciate your expertise in navigating the pre-qualifying stage. We have just a few minutes, if we have anyone who would like to ask a question of Danielle.
Oh yes, hold on. There you go. So I've contacted all of these students in the Language and Literacy Department. They've all given me approval for their emails. Please reach out to them. Something that I can't say enough is this program is amazingly supportive. We're all in it together. We want to make it to the ends. We want to get that PhD. So we're here to learn, and we're here to help each other. So please make use of these emails. They'll expect you, and they'll help you out however they can. So they're there for you. Thank you, Kathleen. I appreciate the compliment.
Again, Danielle, we really appreciate your insights and your tips. Everyone, please help me, join me in thanking Danielle for her wonderful presentation. And if you would, please take a moment to type something in the chat area about tonight's presentation, maybe something you learned or that you would like to say to Danielle about her presentation. We'd always like to get a little bit of feedback from you.
And I really appreciate everyone taking the time out tonight. I know it's late at night, busy schedules, and the holiday is approaching, but I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks, Danielle. On behalf of Dr. Peggy Albers and the Conversations and Doctoral Preparation team, and me, your guest moderator, Christy Pace, we thank you for your keen insights into the PhD journey, Danielle. You've offered some wonderful tips and advice on the process, and we appreciate you speaking with us tonight. Everyone, please like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter with the hashtag @doctoral_prep. You can also watch archived web seminars on our YouTube channel. And please help us get the word out about Conversations in Doctoral Presentation by sharing this information with your friends and colleagues. Tonight's web seminar is the final presentation for our 2014 Spring Series. Please join us in the fall when we will have a great lineup of speakers. And again, we invite you to submit a proposal for one of our upcoming presentations. We also invite you to our upcoming Global Conversations in Literacy Research web seminar featuring Dr. Brian Street on April the 27th. He will present his presentation, The Letter Project, Learning for Empowerment Through Training in Ethnographic Research. Please mark your calendars with the date. The time will be 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And finally, thank you all for participating tonight, and we look forward to seeing you in class, on campus, and in our other on and offline spaces. Good night, and thank you very much for joining us.